Hello and welcome to the first of a series of videos sharing with you how I create content for my online sessions, or how I take face-to-face teaching and convert it for the online platform. So I understand that this might be different from anybody else, but I hope that if I could share with you how I do it, then it might give you some pointers and it might give you some ideas. I recognize straight from the beginning that this is not the only way to do it, but if you have other suggestions, then please let's share them together and add them in the comment below. Okay, so I am working from the premise that you have a face-to-face teaching session in mind. It's already planned and it's accompanied by some sort of presentation. Okay, so in my eyes, a session is maybe 2 or 3 hours long. That is going to be not just me talking to the learners, there will be some interaction as well. And so what I'm going to share with you is my 5 steps. Yes, I've managed to get it down to 5 steps that I go through in my thinking before I actually start recording the session. So at this stage, what I'm doing is that I'm going to read through my presentation and my lecture notes and decide the answers to a range of questions. Now, initially, and perhaps most importantly, the first question I'm asking myself is, what do I want the learners to learn within this session? What do I want them to achieve? This could be included in several bullet points, including important skills I wish them to use and develop, and also what knowledge I want them to engage with and learn to apply to other situations. I tend to communicate this right at the beginning of my presentations in any case. We normally have a title that says something like, what are we going to learn today? And this is really important even for online sessions, to state it right the way at the beginning. The other interesting thing that I put up there as well is why we are learning it, because I think it's important to share with the learners, we're going to do this because it will help you with this, that, or whatever. So once I've decided what the learning and skills and application is going to be, I then start looking at the presentation, but I keep the learning foremost in my mind. It's almost like sticking that post-it on the screen saying, this is what we're learning, look at this. So I start to look through the presentation and I make notes about the content, and I make it notes on it. I just sort of like highlight it or type in a new document and start to say what form the learning takes. Now, essentially, I have a set series of forms that I work with. I'm not saying that you should use these or anything like that. It's just so, you know, if you want an idea, this is how I start. So the first thing I look for is direct teaching. This essentially is me talking to the learners. Okay, so I identify everything that is direct teaching, and then look at activities. These are what the students, when the students or the learners are doing something, and it's important to think about the outcome of that, but we'll come back to that later on. I consider any times that I'm posting questions or asking questions that I want them to discuss or answer directly, and I make sure I mark all those off. I look at when there's moments when I want them to do their own research. This links to activities, but it's another, like a subdivision. And then finally, I look at anything that I want to challenge or extend their learning on. Okay, and once I've done all that, it's time to write the script. Now, you might be quite amazed that I actually do script my videos, and I write it in on Word, nothing fancy. Now this could be a fully written script, or it could be, as you become more confident recording, more of an online or notes version. So it's just sort of like you'll just have your notes to remind you. This is really important when you're recording your video, which is going to be the next session, the next series of videos. Now sometimes when I'm writing my script, because I know what form the learning is, the activities or the learning or the direct teaching is going to take, then sometimes I need to rearrange things, because I don't want all the direct teaching, me just talking at the front of it, and then all the activities at the end. I want to intersperse the direct teaching with some activities or questions, etc., etc. And this allows for an approach that allows the learners to dip in and out, but also gives them a rest from the sat watching the screen, listening to your dulcet tones waft across the internet. So next up, activities. And I think this is important to think about. The direct teaching will be quite easy to do, as will the challenge and the extension. But the activities is the first bit that the techie stuff is going to come into, because when we're face-to-face teaching, the activities is fine. We can just say, talk to your partner now, do this, feeling that's far. And what we need to do, we need to try to transfer that from the face-to-face teaching, the physical, into the online environment. Now, what I do is that the first thing I do is that I look at the activities and I consider the learning foremost in my mind, but also what the students are familiar with. I don't want to suddenly give them a new program or a new way of doing something, because that will actually impact negatively on the learning, because they could get stressed or frustrated or not understand how to use the new piece of software, and then that will be detract from the learning. So what I try to do is think about things that they can do or they know how to do. So I mentioned it in a PDF that I shared with everybody about moving things online. But one of the things I will think is that, can I replicate this activity just by getting them to type their responses into a Word document? Then just upload it to an assignment area. Does it need to be something that replicates some sort of communal constructivism, when they might use Padlet or discussion forums to expand ideas and development? Or could it be just something that they need to do by themselves and just enjoy doing it, and that's it? Do they need to take a photograph of the end result and upload it somewhere? And this is the thinking that I go through all the time, and I think it's really important at this point to not go overboard. If I decide to use some kind of software that the students are not familiar with, or the learners are not familiar with, then I make a note that I have to model it in the video. Okay, so I'm actually going to model it, and I need to sort of like take them through step by step. And I'll talk about that in the next video in this series. And finally, step 5. I could have talked about 10 steps, but 5 is a nice number, I think. I decide about whether there needs to be a response to the questions, to the activities. What will the responses be? Now, sometimes I ask questions and I just want the students or the learners to have thinking time, and I'm just posing it to actually get them to think about it or consider it. Sometimes I'm going to ask a question so they actually respond to it, so I can check their understanding. And sometimes, and we all do this, and this is absolutely fine, we want their opinion and then we're going to give them an answer and see how they compare. We do a lot of this in mathematics when we say things like, so how would you organize this progression? They do it, and then we say, right, compare and contrast with what this says in theoretical, the framework here. What's the same? What's different? Why would you think that? So they're actually engaging with it rather than us just giving them a set format. Now, once I've done this, then I've made notes of it in my script, and it's really important to do this and sort of like change your color writing, etc., etc. So when you come to record it, you've got this script and it's virtually telling you step by step what to do. Now, many of you might think, oh, I'll just sit down and do the PowerPoint. For me, for it to be effective online learning, in my view, it needs to be a little bit more than that. So I always script everything, not word for word, but it has those important little signs on them, symbols, different color writing saying this is what I'm going to do. So once you've thought about all that, and once you've done the script, or I've thought about it and I've done the script, then it's time to get on to the recording. And I'm going to talk about how I record my online sessions in the next video. So please come back for that. Hope this has been helpful. See you later. Bye.